The FBI really pushed hard in the days after the shooting. They sent about 40 agents into Ferguson. They interviewed about 200 people, and they found no real evidence to support the civil rights case, and that's sort of where we are.
The call was out and heard loudly. The grand jury in Ferguson got it all wrong, perhaps even a conspiracy. The Justice Department, led by Eric Holder, would settle matters right and indict former Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson in what was, as many knew all too well, nothing more than stoking the fires of racial hate. It is a pleasure to welcome into Midpoint the 80th Attorney General of the United States, serving under President George W. Bush, the first Hispanic to serve as White House counsel, and currently the Dean of Belmont University College of Law in Nashville, Tennessee. Alberto Gonzales joins us. Mr. Gonzales, thank you so much for being here.
It's good to be with you.
As you have looked at what the Justice Department was looking at with regard to Ferguson, obviously you've paid very close attention to what happened with the grand jury as well. Are you satisfied that everything possible was done, every letter of the law was looked at, and that these cases were adjudicated properly with no indictment?
Oh, I think so, based upon the facts as we know them. Obviously, we're not privy to many of the law enforcement decisions that are made by prosecutors, in this case by the Department of Justice. But I think the people of Ferguson should be reassured by the fact that it appears the Department of Justice went well beyond what you would normally see in an investigation to reassure the people in Ferguson that justice was achieved. And I think that's what we have here in this particular case.
How much dismays you when you heard a lot of the people, and obviously this was before we heard this potential for the Justice Department basically to go no further on Darren Wilson's case, but those who said that because it was led by Eric Holder, an African American, that he would then see it fairly and he would make things different, because that cast aspersions on the entire system of justice simply being based on color instead of the letter of the law, does it not?
Well, no question about it. I mean, obviously, when I was the Attorney General, there were households in America that were happy that a Hispanic had been elevated to the position of Attorney General, a historic position. But there is no brown justice, no black justice, no white justice. There is just justice. And the Attorney General of the United States has to administer justice equally, no matter the skin color of the defendant, no matter the skin color of the victim. Your job is to simply apply the law.
In your opinion, then, what needs to be done in order to push forward to the American public exactly what you said? There is no brown justice, white justice, yellow justice, whatever. It is simply justice for the United States and citizens here, because you know as well as I do, there is a large group of people out there, led by a number of people who like to rankle the chains as much as they can to basically state that there is a difference in color.
Well, I think communication is a very important a part of trying to calm the waters here, and a better understanding, both by the police department to understand the needs, the challenges of the community, and then by the community and understanding the way that the department really conducts its business, the professionalism of police officers. One of the things that really dismayed me about this whole episode was there seemed to be so much talk about justice for Michael Brown, and so little talk about the fact that 99% of police officers around the country, they go to work every day risking their life. They do a great job, and in many communities around the country, law enforcement offices have worked hard to establish strong relationships with the community. So there's been a lot of good work done in this area, and what I was disappointed in seeing flowing from the Ferguson shooting was the fact that this image, the projection that in fact we've got a serious policing problem in this United States. And I think it's to the extent we have problems, it's fairly isolated. Now, we shouldn't have any, and I think we're working hard to eliminate those. But I think police do a very good job. They work very hard in ensuring that they do their job in a professional manner.
I have about 30 seconds left, and then we'll come back for more. They recently released in Ferguson closed-circuit security camera footage of a store being robbed there. People are saying that's wrong. You should not have put that out there because that only helps exacerbate the situation. Cops say they're looking for the perpetrators. What's your take?
Listen, it's hard for me to comment on specific tactics relating to an investigation without knowing other information. Particularly, you have to put yourself in the position at the time in terms of trying to address a specific law enforcement challenge. So without knowing more about it, I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable commenting on it. But obviously, these are the kinds of decisions that one has to make with a great deal of care and sensitivity, to the circumstances surrounding the investigation.
What you exactly said there, the care and sensitivity, that so often is what is being talked about in situations such as this, because certainly we need to talk a little bit more about that. You mentioned a little bit about the policing in America and certainly what is happening now with regard to law enforcement. We will indeed do that. Midpoint continues. Let's welcome back to Midpoint the former Attorney General of the United States, Alberto Gonzales. Mr. Gonzales, in the last moment we talked, you mentioned the words serious policing problem. And I bring that to the fore simply because coming up this weekend on 60 Minutes, the police chief in Cleveland, Calvin Williams, is going to come out and say that we need to rid the force of bad cops. There's a thinking out there with America that there's a lot of bad cops out there. You said that they work hard every day, they put their life on the line. We know there's a difference. How do we then ferret out, pull out these bad cops, these men and women who use it for their own advantage? I call them bullet heads sometimes with the way that they carry themselves, and make people believe that there's good cops out there and they really care about the citizens, not about going out and inflicting the laws as they see fit.
Well, first of all, to the extent that an incident happens which raises questions about policing, people have to be comfortable that, in fact, there is a thorough investigation, certainly an internal investigation. In some cases, it may go beyond that. For example, you may have a potential prosecution. So that's very important. In many cities around the country, you have citizen review boards. So to the extent you can involve the community in understanding what the police department is doing in investigating certain kinds of crimes, I think that's very, very important as well. So, listen, I believe that as I've said before, most law enforcement, they do their job every day in a very professional manner. There are some that don't, a very few that don't, and to the extent that there are people that are engaged, police officers that are engaged in policing that is improper, that is in fact unlawful, we need to find that out. We need to ferret that out. And so I applaud the police chief in Cleveland for that effort. Which, if in fact you're responsible and you believe you have people that on your team that are not doing their jobs in a way that they should be, there need to be changes.
Don't we need to, though, go right in and pick them out? Because with a lot of people that I speak with, they say it takes so long. You have the videotape. As a matter of fact, there's videotape right now of cops in New Jersey killing a gentleman who had his hands raised. And there's a lot of questions being raised about that right now. People will say it takes sometimes years. You see it, you know it, take them out, pull them out, get rid of these cops right away, and stop letting us think you're covering something up.
Well, again, obviously video evidence is very important, but that's sometimes it's not. It doesn't tell the whole story. Sometimes those images are out of context in some way, and so even though you may have a video that shows what appears to be police brutality, police wrongdoing, we want to be careful in terms of making sure we get it right. Speed, coming to some resolution within a reasonable period of time is important, but what's more important is that we get it right. The investigation has to be handled right, and we have to come out with a right outcome, which is, of course, the truth.
But you would agree that in many cases these investigations lag, and you need to get out there, you need to do it, you need to show the citizenry that you're in there and you're going to get right on it. Wouldn't you agree that it takes too long sometimes? Unions get involved and so many other elements get involved. It slows down the process and brings about that lack of confidence.
Sometimes it does appear to take too long, but again, we also have the notion of due process here in this country, and these individuals, these police officers, are innocent until proven guilty, and so they have a process in place. They have rights under their unions, and so these are all issues that have to be worked with. But yes, I do think that a part of the problem that we have in our communities is a frustration that it takes too long to reach a resolution, one way or the other. What they're really looking for is some kind of resolution.
I have about a minute and a half left, and I need to ask you about Sheldon Silver, the Speaker of the New York Assembly, one of the most powerful politicians in the state, allegedly obtaining millions of dollars in bribes and kickbacks. Isn't this just another example of where the state governments, local governments, and even the federal government has got to crack down on these people, find out if they're guilty right away, and take them out of the system?
Absolutely. If you talk about public officials, people holding positions of trust, I think we hold them to a higher standard. And to the extent there are these kinds of allegations, there needs to be a very thorough an investigation. But again, we face the issue of due process, certain protections that are afforded to anyone who's accused of committing wrongdoing. But nonetheless, I think many people would have much more confidence in our judicial system with respect to the efforts of our prosecutors if, in fact, people could be brought to justice at a much faster pace.
I've only got about 30 seconds left, but I do need to ask you this because you did work under President George Bush. What would you think about a Jeb Bush presidency run?
Well, I think Jeb Bush would be a fine president, quite honestly. And I think given the fact that his level of experience being the governor of Florida, obviously he's very intelligent, very interested in very important policy issues that are affecting our country. We have some serious challenges. I think someone like Jeb Bush, but would be make a fine president. But there are many others, of course, who are being considered, being talked about. That would likewise make a fine president, but I'm a big fan of Jeb Bush.
I did not expect someone of your stature to be able to come right out and say, yes, I will vote for him right now. I did not expect that indeed. Alberto Gonzales, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to join us. I hope we get a chance to do it again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The man who's willing to substitute for one destined to receive 1,000 lashes. That and so much more coming up on Midpoint.